The shocking incident at Windsor Castle, a drunk father's outburst and a guard's heroic response. During a peaceful morning at Windsor Castle, a shocking scene unfolded when an intoxicated American tourist in his mid-30s disrupted the solemn atmosphere, putting his two young children, aged around 5 and 3, in danger. The man, reeking of alcohol and slurring his words, grew increasingly aggressive, shouting at the guards and demanding they do something instead of standing still. Ignoring pleas from his children and warnings from palace staff, he violently hurled a 30-pound stroller directly at Private Patrick Lawrence, a 24-year-old Royal Guard with 3 tours of military experience. In an extraordinary display of skill and composure, Lawrence broke protocol, something guards rarely do, by catching the stroller mid-air before it could strike him. Without hesitation, he then subdued the drunken father with a textbook restraint maneuver, pinning him to the ground while maintaining enough control to avoid unnecessary harm. The crowd, initially stunned, erupted into applause as they witnessed the guard's swift transition from stoic sentinel to active protector. Lawrence's priority remained clear: ensuring the safety of the frightened children, whom he comforted with reassuring words. The incident revealed the true nature of the Queen's Guard. Far more than ceremonial figures, they are highly trained soldiers capable of real-world intervention. While the father was arrested and the children handed over to their aunt, Lawrence returned to his post without seeking praise, embodying the discipline and humility of his role. The event sparked discussions about respect for authority, the dangers of public intoxication, and the unseen sacrifices made by those in uniform. For older audiences, especially Americans who value duty and decorum, this story serves as a poignant reminder that true strength lies not in spectacle, but in quiet, principled action. The Queen's Guard, ceremonial splendor, meets elite military precision. The iconic image of the Queen's Guard, immaculate in scarlet tunics and towering bearskin hats, often leads tourists to view them as little more than living statues, part of Britain's picturesque royal tradition. However, the dramatic incident at Windsor Castle involving Private Patrick Lawrence revealed the profound truth behind these ceremonial figures. They are, first and foremost, elite soldiers trained to the highest standards of military excellence. Private Lawrence's background exemplifies this duality. A 24-year-old with 3 combat deployments to conflict zones, he had earned his place among the Queen's Guard through distinguished service. His daily routine, awakening at 4:30 a.m. to painstakingly prepare a uniform, with boots polished to mirror-like perfection, reflects not vanity, but the discipline instilled through years of military training. While tourists see only the ceremonial rigidity, the unchanging stance, the expressionless face, Lawrence's peripheral vision remained acutely attuned to potential threats, his combat-honed instincts masked by perfect stillness. The confrontation with the intoxicated American tourist laid bare this hidden capability. When a 30-pound stroller came hurtling toward him, Lawrence's reaction was not that of a ceremonial performer, but of a combat veteran. His mid-air catch of the projectile and subsequent takedown of the aggressor demonstrated reflexes sharpened in far more dangerous environments than palace courtyards. Notably, his restraint, using just enough force to neutralize the threat without unnecessary violence, spoke volumes about his professionalism. This incident underscores a critical misconception about the Queen's Guard. Their primary duty is protection, not performance. The bearskin hats and scarlet tunics, while visually striking, are not costumes but uniforms of active military personnel. As one veteran in the crowd observed, these are among the best trained soldiers in the world, a fact lost on many visitors who treat them as photo opportunities rather than the highly disciplined professionals they are. The aftermath proved equally revealing. Lawrence's immediate concern for the traumatized children, kneeling to speak gently with them about his uniform's buttons and their symbolic meaning, showed a human dimension behind the ceremonial facade. His seamless return to duty afterward, despite having just intervened in a violent altercation, epitomized the Guard's ethos: service before self. For older American audiences raised to respect military service, this episode offers a powerful lesson in looking beyond appearances. The Queen's Guard embody a tradition where splendor and substance coexist, where every polished button and motionless hour represents not empty ritual, but the quiet readiness of those sworn to protect. As the video's narrator concluded, this was a powerful reminder that behind every uniform stands a real person with training, dedication, and the judgment to act when duty calls, qualities that transcend borders and generations. The psychology of a public breakdown, lessons from the Windsor Castle incident. The disturbing confrontation at Windsor Castle reveals much more than a guard's quick reflexes. It exposes the tragic consequences of unchecked anger and substance abuse in public spaces. The American tourist, a divorced father in his mid-30s, became a case study in how personal struggles can erupt into public spectacle when fueled by alcohol. His repeated claims about tax dollars paying for the experience and demands that the guards work for us reflected a dangerous sense of entitlement that escalated into violence against both his children and the symbols of authority before him. Psychologists might analyze this incident as a textbook example of displacement. The father's rage about his divorce and custody, battle manifesting against an unmoving guard who became the perfect target for his frustrations. His behavior followed the classic pattern of intoxication-induced aggression, initial belligerence, followed by physical violence, throwing the stroller, then alternating between threats and pleas when confronted with consequences. The presence of his terrified children added layers of complexity, revealing how adult breakdowns create lasting trauma for young witnesses. The crowd's reaction provides equally important insights. Their initial discomfort, exchanging glances but not intervening, gave way to collective action only when the situation turned physical. This bystander effect was broken by the guard's decisive response, which then empowered others. The veteran who first spoke up, the doctor who checked the children, and ultimately Child Protective Services. The incident became a microcosm of societal responsibility, showing how proper authority can mobilize communal protection for the vulnerable. Most poignant were the children's reactions. The boy's whispered confession that he's never been this bad before, and his instinct to protect his sister spoke volumes about their home life. Their interaction with Private Lawrence afterward, where the guard deliberately shifted focus to his uniform's buttons to provide comfort and normalcy, demonstrated how trauma specialists recommend speaking with children after crises. The aunt's arrival and the children's immediate relief at seeing her suggested she may have been their emotional anchor long before this incident. For older viewers, this incident likely resonates as a cautionary tale about several modern issues: the public consequences of private struggles, the epidemic of alcohol abuse, and the erosion of respect for institutions. Yet it also offers hope, showing how trained professionals like Lawrence can de-escalate volatile situations while maintaining compassion, and how communities can come together to shield the innocent when crisis strikes. The real story wasn't about a guard catching a stroller, but about how society should catch those falling through its cracks before they pull others down with them. The ripple effects of a moment's outrage, societal lessons from Windsor Castle. The viral Windsor Castle incident represents far more than a dramatic 90-second confrontation. It serves as a mirror reflecting contemporary societal tensions about authority, parenting, and public decorum. As the scene unfolded, the crowd's transformation from passive observers to active participants created a fascinating case study in group psychology. Initially, tourists responded with uncomfortable silence and furtive glances, recording the altercation rather than intervening, a behavior social scientists might attribute to the bystander effect in the digital age. Yet the moment Private Lawrence took decisive action, the collective mood shifted palpably. Applause erupted spontaneously, military veterans offered salutes, and parents used the moment to teach their children about respect, suggesting society still instinctively values disciplined authority figures who act with moral clarity. The aftermath revealed equally important insights about institutional responses to public disturbances. Palace security, local police, and child welfare services demonstrated seamless coordination. The father was removed efficiently, the children were comforted and protected, and Lawrence returned to his post with quiet dignity. This efficient handling stands in stark contrast to many viral videos of public disturbances that devolve into chaos. The presence of Child Protective Services specialist Catherine Wilson within minutes highlights how seriously British institutions treat child welfare cases, even when involving foreign nationals. Meanwhile, Lawrence's commanding officer's subtle nod of approval balanced military discipline with recognition of exceptional judgment, a masterclass in leadership. The incident's digital aftermath warrants particular examination. Unlike typical viral videos where online discourse becomes polarized, reactions to this event showed remarkable consensus across demographics. Military families praised Lawrence's restraint, parenting bloggers analyzed the children's trauma responses, and etiquette experts lamented the decline of public decorum, all finding common ground in condemning the father's actions while empathizing with his personal struggles. This unusual harmony suggests certain values: protecting children, respecting authority figures performing their duties, and maintaining public sobriety still transcend cultural divides. For older Americans watching, the Windsor Castle confrontation likely evoked nostalgia for a time when uniforms commanded automatic respect and public intoxication carried social consequences. Yet it also offered a hopeful model for modern crisis response, demonstrating how trained professionals can de-escalate volatile situations while maintaining compassion, and how communities can rediscover shared values when witnessing clear moral contrasts. The true legacy of this incident may lie not in its initial shock value, but in its enduring demonstration that society still knows right from wrong when it sees it. The deeper meaning behind the uniform. A soldier's choice between duty and humanity. The dramatic encounter at Windsor Castle presented Private Patrick Lawrence with an impossible dilemma: strict adherence to protocol versus his moral duty to protect. As a Queen's Guard, Lawrence was trained to remain absolutely still, embodying the unchanging strength of the monarchy. His role demanded he become more symbol than man, ignoring provocation from tourists seeking reactions. Yet when faced with genuine danger, not just to himself but to innocent children, he made the conscious choice to break from centuries of tradition. This decision reveals the complex reality behind ceremonial military roles. Even the most rigid traditions must bend when humanity calls. Lawrence's actions demonstrated the sophisticated judgment possessed by elite soldiers. His 3 combat deployments had honed his ability to assess threats instantly, recognizing that the drunken father's stroller throw wasn't mere harassment, but an actual danger. His response was measured perfection, catching the projectile, neutralizing the aggressor with nonviolent restraint, then immediately comforting the traumatized children. This sequence proved the Queen's Guard selection process works. They choose soldiers who can transition instantly from ceremonial stillness to operational readiness. The incident's aftermath highlighted the institutional wisdom of the British military. While Lawrence technically violated standing orders by leaving his post, his commanding officer's quiet approval acknowledged the higher truth. No military tradition should require sacrificing common humanity. This nuanced response stands in stark contrast to rigid bureaucracies that punish technical violations regardless of context. The Guard system allowed for both discipline and discretion, recognizing that sometimes breaking protocol is the most honorable choice. For older generations who value both tradition and moral courage, Lawrence's actions represent an ideal balance. He upheld the Guard's dignity not through mindless obedience, but by understanding its deeper purpose: to protect, not just to appear. His subsequent return to perfect stillness after the crisis demonstrated that true discipline includes knowing when to temporarily set aside the rules. In an era where institutions are increasingly questioned, this incident reminds us that the best traditions evolve to preserve their core values. The bearskin hats and scarlet tunics matter precisely because of the thinking, feeling soldiers who wear them. Men like Private Lawrence, who prove that sometimes honoring your duty means knowing when to step out of formation. The enduring legacy of discipline and service. What the Windsor Castle incident teaches us. The remarkable incident at Windsor Castle transcends its dramatic moments to reveal timeless truths about duty, service, and human character. Private Patrick Lawrence's actions that day became a living lesson in how true discipline serves higher purposes. His instantaneous transition from ceremonial statue to active protector demonstrated that real military bearing isn't about mindless obedience, but about understanding when and how to apply one's training for the greater good. This paradox, that breaking protocol can sometimes best uphold an institution's values, lies at the heart of professional military ethics across cultures and generations. For older Americans who remember when military service commanded near universal respect, the video's most poignant moment may have been Lawrence's quiet return to his post after the crisis. Without seeking recognition or praise, he simply resumed his vigil, his face again becoming the impassive mask of royal tradition. This unspoken commitment speaks volumes to those who understand that true service requires both extraordinary action and ordinary perseverance. The elderly veteran who later saluted Lawrence recognized this deeper truth, that the most meaningful acts of duty often go officially uncelebrated. The incident's viral spread and overwhelmingly positive reception suggest a public hunger for such examples of quiet excellence. In our era of performative outrage and manufactured controversies, Lawrence's blend of competence and compassion struck a universal chord. People from all political perspectives could agree on the essential rightness of his actions, a rare moment of consensus in fractured times. This reaction hints at an often overlooked truth, that despite surface differences, most people still share fundamental values about protecting children, respecting authority properly exercised, and maintaining public order. Ultimately, the Windsor Castle confrontation endures in memory, not because of its novelty, but because it reaffirmed enduring virtues. Private Lawrence became momentarily famous not for doing anything extraordinary, but for doing his ordinary job extraordinarily well. His story reminds us that behind every tradition worth preserving stand real human beings making real judgments, that the still waters of ceremonial duty run deep with preparedness, discernment, and moral courage. For older generations who worry about eroding values and younger ones seeking authentic role models, this incident offers hope that the best traditions adapt without compromising, and that true discipline always serves humanity. Life lessons from Windsor Castle, timeless wisdom for today. This remarkable incident teaches us that true discipline is not about rigid rules, but about knowing when to uphold principles with wisdom and compassion. Private Lawrence's actions remind us that real strength lies in balancing duty with humanity, protecting the vulnerable while maintaining dignity. For those of us who've lived through changing times, it reaffirms that some values remain constant: respect for authority properly exercised, responsibility for one's actions, and the courage to do what's right even when it's difficult. The father's breakdown illustrates how unchecked anger and substance abuse can shatter lives, while the guard's response shows how professionalism and restraint can restore order. Most importantly, the children's trauma reminds us that our actions always affect others, especially the young and impressionable. In our later years, we understand that what matters most isn't being perfect, but being present, like Lawrence comforting those children, or the aunt who arrived to care for them. Life, like the Queen's Guard, requires both steadfastness and flexibility, knowing when to stand firm and when to step forward with compassion. These timeless lessons about duty, decency, and discernment are what we should pass on to younger generations.